No, Liberals, your grocery and essentials benefit and all the free payments you've been receiving from the Liberal government over the last 11 years are not free. They're not the government giving you some sort of benefit. It's actually remarkable that they're even allowed to use the word benefit when you understand how these work. What if I showed up at your front door tomorrow with a check and I said, here's a check for $500. And by the way, Mr. and Mrs. Canadian, it is no catch, no paperwork. I don't even have a payment or a repayment schedule in my back pocket. $500 for you. I smile and I say, don't worry, guys, it's free. Now, most of you would probably think that I was the nicest guy in Canada for handing you $500 until you discovered exactly how I was able to afford to do it. Because I quietly borrowed $5,000 using your name and other people's names as well to write that check for $500. Suddenly, when you see that difference in numbers and that it's in your name, I'm not so generous anymore, am I? I'm incredibly irresponsible because deep down, every one of us should, I hope, understand some very simple math with all of this. And that is that borrowed money isn't free. So here's my question. Why do we have so many Canadians suddenly forgetting that lesson the moment the government is the one doing the borrowing? We see it all the time, but we don't call it out. And I believe this is the biggest financial lie you've all been duped into believing. The idea that government can somehow give us free money, but they don't have money. They have your money. Let's tap into the truth.
Welcome to Bakes on Things.
Welcome back to Tap the Maple here on your Monday morning. My name is Chris Baker. This is the Bakes on Things channel. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you like receiving this content every single day. One of the smartest tricks in politics isn't convincing people to pay higher taxes. It feels like a trick, but it's actually convincing people that they've been given something for nothing. And we seem to get this a lot. We call it a rebate, or the government will call it a benefit, a one-time payment, a top-up, an affordability check, a grocery benefit, as we've most recently seen, a housing bonus, an energy rebate. The names change, but the structure of what they're doing doesn't. The logos might change. The governments even might change a little bit with new prime ministers with the same government behind them. But the message, it never changes. Look what we're giving you, Canada. We're giving it to you. And that's where I think Canadians need to pause for a moment and start to check themselves before we wreck ourselves. Because governments don't create wealth for their people. They redistribute it always, or they borrow against tomorrow. There isn't a vault in Ottawa that magically fills itself with free money waiting to be handed out every single election cycle. There are really only three ways governments can actually pay for anything, let alone these benefits. They collect taxes from you, they borrow money from others, or they expand the money supply by printing money, which can contribute to massive inflation if they do it as excessively as Liberals do. That's it. Those are the three ways. It's the only way a government gets money. There isn't a secret fourth option called free, despite how they sell it to you. Every dollar spent came from somewhere and has to be put back. If it didn't come from taxpayers today, I can promise you it comes from taxpayers tomorrow. There is no question about that. It is not free. And that distinction matters because borrowing delays the cost. So they don't have to admit that you have to pay this back down the road yet. It doesn't eliminate any costs. Think about it this way. Imagine Canada is one giant family. We're all just completely related and we're a huge family. Instead of mom or dad having a credit card, the entire house has a credit card. It shares one enormous national credit card. Now, one day the family decides groceries are getting a little bit expensive. So what they do is they put a few $1,000s worth of groceries on that big family national credit card. Was buying groceries necessarily the wrong decision? Not so much. Not at all, really, because you've got to feed yourself, you've got to feed the family. Families sometimes use credit during difficult times. We get that. Businesses borrow to expand. So if maybe it's a business that you're running as part of this family, homeowners borrow to buy houses. Even governments sometimes borrow for emergencies, recessions, natural disasters, or infrastructure that can benefit millions of people for decades. Borrowing itself isn't automatically irresponsible. So what the hell are you talking about here, Chris? Well, it creates a real question, and that real question is this: was the borrowing truly worth it? Did it create enough long-term value to justify paying interest on it for years to come? That's the conversation we should be truly having, especially about things like the grocery and essentials benefit. Not whether borrowing exists per se. All governments borrow, but whether it's being used wisely. Because here's what happens far too often, and it seems to happen more here than anywhere else. Politicians announce a new benefit for you. It's going to help your affordability. Everyone focuses on the check you're going to receive that Friday. Almost nobody asks, hey, wait a minute, whoa, where did this money come from? That's because human psychology is a fascinating thing, isn't it? We notice money arriving in our bank account, but we rarely notice the invisible costs that follow years later from that decision. Whether that's debt servicing, whether that's higher interest payments eventually, whether that's reduced room for future tax cuts, whether that's less flexibility for our healthcare system, or less flexibility for any infrastructure to be built, or less flexibility for national defense to be paid for, the benefit is immediate to you. You saw a deposit on Friday in your bank account. So the cost is delayed, you're not seeing it. And delayed costs are politically very convenient for this government. Here's another part that rarely gets discussed, so we're going to talk about it here. Before a single dollar reaches a Canadian household, government has already spent money creating the damn program itself. It's already cost money before you get a dollar. Someone has to design it. Someone has to write the legislation for it. Someone has to build the application systems if you need to apply for it. Someone has to review eligibility requirements to make sure it is something you qualify for. Someone has to answer the phone call questions about the program. Someone has to investigate fraud. Someone has to alert the banks. Someone has to audit compliance for these programs. And someone has to manage communications. In fact, someone has to oversee the entire bureaucracy that makes the program function before you even get a dollar. And guess what, folks? None of that is free. Those administrative costs are paid before many Canadians ever see a single dollar on that Friday in your bank account. Then interest begins accumulating on that debt used to finance the program before you get any dollars. So the actual cost to society is often far greater than the value of any payments made to Canadian citizens themselves. Again, that doesn't automatically mean the program shouldn't exist. It simply means we should stop pretending that it arrived by some magic carpet thanks to Aladdin. No, it did not. It is borrowed money and borrowed from you. Here's something else that we should be probably thinking about here. When governments borrow, the repayment doesn't come from the people who happen to be in office. Guess who it comes from? You! It comes from the country. Some of it will be paid back by the very people who receive the benefit, by today's workers. Some of it will be paid by tomorrow's workers who never got a dollar of it. Some of it will be paid by young Canadians who weren't even old enough to vote when that money was spent as a free benefit to you to help you with groceries. The groceries are long since eaten. The rebate gets deposited. The announcement fades from the headlines. But the debt that caused that program or paid for that program can remain for decades. Decades. And this is where I think we've unintentionally trained ourselves to think ass backwards in the country of Canada. If government raises taxes today, for example, people get angry immediately. You get pissed off. You're like, taxes are going up again? We're already taxed to death. If government borrows billions instead and then gives you a benefit back, many people celebrate because the money feels like it's free. I just got a deposit. But economically borrowing doesn't erase the bill, folks. It changes when and how it's paid and how much you have to pay back. Sometimes through future taxation, sometimes through reduced government services in order to pay for the past program. Think about how they're struggling with CERB. Sometimes it's through more debt, interest, and the whole crowd, all of us, has to pay. Sometimes it's quietly reduced purchasing power for the country. However it happens, someone eventually pays. Usually, it's you. Now, let me be very, very clear here. Helping Canadians isn't the problem. Every political party has a way they've come up with to help Canadians. No compassionate person wants to see any family on the street, struggling, or at food banks. There will always be moments when governments are going to have to step in certain places, but they must pick the right spots. There's going to be natural disasters that happen, major recessions that happen, pandemics, public health emergencies, or investments that genuinely strengthen the country's future. The question isn't whether governments should ever help, it's really whether we're honest about what that help actually costs. Think Alto Rail, for example, helping a very small portion of this population while costing us all. And that's the thing. Pretending borrowed money is free destroys the accountability in this country altogether. The next time you hear a politician from any party proudly announce that they're giving Canadians billions of dollars, don't immediately ask how much you're getting in your bank account. Ask one simple question. Who paid for this? How are we paying for this? Are my kids' going to have to pay for this? If the answer is that yes, there is borrowed money involved, there's interest involved, then the better question really becomes, who is it, which generations are going to eventually pay for this? Because governments don't erase bills. They don't just fly away. They don't just disintegrate. They can only decide who receives them and when. And that's what the Carney government is doing right now. Benefits, benefits, benefits. We'll get other generations to pay for this later. There's nothing wrong with investing in this country. There's nothing wrong with borrowing responsibly as a government. There's nothing wrong with helping people who genuinely need it in this country. But there is something very, very wrong with pretending that borrowed money has no cost. And that's what photo ops, pressers, and stupid 7-minute speeches that the Prime Minister gives with a doll on his desk on YouTube do. It's either today's taxpayers or tomorrow's, but I promise you, Canada, someone is going to pay. And maybe, just maybe, the most expensive word in Canadian politics is free. That's how you tap into the truth. Don't forget to like, subscribe, join the conversation down below. Are you aware of how this works? Are you aware from other government subsidies you've received, how much you've had to pay back of those subsidies over the years? Are you aware that the grocery and essentials benefit is like a microloan with no agreements to sign? They're just going to take it from you down the road. And also, they're going to take it from people who didn't even qualify to get it. But somebody's got to pay it back, right? It costs billions of dollars to administer the $500 you got last week. And this is the problem in this country. It is sold to you as a groceries and essentials benefit. It is going to help your affordability. But guess what happens to little Timmy, your grandkid that's not born yet from 10 decades from now? Well, maybe not 10 decades, but you know what I mean. Guess what happens to them? They pay all of that. They pay it. And you pay it too, because immediately somebody has to start paying the interest costs on the debt created to create that program. And that's just one program. So let's talk about it in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, join the conversation, as I said, and we will see you tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time for your Tuesday edition of Tap the Maple. I need to go take a breath. I actually also need to get a coffee because look at today. Didn't have time to fill it. It's empty, and that is a Canadian cardinal sin. I will see you tomorrow. Have a great day.